Hi guys, so I've often talked about how the issue of immigration was weaponised by Vote Leave and Leave EU groups in the run-up to the Brexit referendum. Now, Europe was hardly on people's minds when the Tories first came to power in 2010, and the issue of immigration was something pretty much limited to the far right. However, Brexiteers like Farage and his UKIP party were extremely successful in convincing the British public that all of the problems in their life stemmed from the European Union, and Brexit would fix that. They also weaponised immigration, pushing the belief that it was a net cost and it was destroying British culture and needed to be strictly controlled. The theoretical physicist Steven Weinberg once said, "With or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion." And Brexit is like a religion. It convinced good people to turn on their neighbours. Have a listen to this former NHS doctor describe how both austerity and Brexit drove him away from his profession as he spoke to Chris Bryant on LBC.
But that was my best period working in the NHS, was under the Labour government. And then austerity hit, and it just basically it corroded everything that, I tried to work for and my vocation, until basically, I just felt I had enough. The workload was just getting greater and greater. And the other thing, the B word didn't help. So up until 2016, I don't think anybody ever mentioned Europe. I hardly ever had a patient mention it. And then afterwards, I was getting lots and lots of patients coming in, suddenly having an opinion about immigration, about the NHS. It's great to see a white doctor who speaks English. And basically, I couldn't cope with that with people that I'd got to know as patients. Right. And I think it was just a combination of the austerity. I mean, the austerity bit, because I know the figures. I mean,
sorry, do you mean by that? Sorry to interrupt you, Richard, but do you mean because that upset you, that you felt that they had a set of values that weren't yours?
Yes, people who I'd known, because obviously when you're doing general practice, you get to know people. Yeah. And suddenly these people who they'd never mentioned anything about, any concern about foreign workers or boat people or anything to do with European rules. Right. Never mentioned anything. I used to see them come in, email underarm with something about milkmaids or bananas on the front of the book, but they never talked about it. But then suddenly it became a subject.
It suddenly became a subject. Why did it become a subject? Because the likes of Farage, UKIP and Boris Johnson and others realised that in order to get Brexit across the line, they needed to create fear of immigrants. They needed to find a scapegoat. Whatever problems you are having, the EU is at fault here. The problems stem from the European Union. And the solution to that problem is leaving the EU. Fishermen, you want to catch more fish. You want to clean the ocean of fish. And you can't do that because of strict EU rules. Well, once we leave the EU, you can do whatever the hell you want. Farmers, the same. You want to do whatever you want on your land, put whatever type of fertilizer. The EU is blocking you. Once we leave, you'll be free to do whatever the hell you want. When it came to immigration, of course, and the NHS, they were talking about how immigrants were putting extra strain on the NHS, that the waiting lists were because of immigrants. If we got rid of these immigrants, if we left the EU, there would be no more, there'd be fewer people on waiting lists. And instead, what has happened over the last number of years, waiting lists have increased dramatically. And, before the pandemic, there were, I think, 6 million people on a waiting list, or 4 million, something, massive numbers of people on waiting lists. It's gone up. And this has been during a Tory government. And if you have fewer staff, if you're bringing in fewer staff from abroad, then of course, the ones who are remaining are going to have a bigger workload. And you're going to have the consequences of that. What upsets me most about all of this is that we know it was lies. We now know it was, even if I'm not criticizing people who voted for Brexit, they were convinced by these lies, these charlatans. They were told everything would be better. And if you're struggling at the moment economically, or you're looking at your hospital and you can't get an appointment, and you're being told by someone like Farage or Johnson or whoever that everything will be better as soon as we leave the European Union, you take a chance. I'm not criticizing people for that. What I am criticizing is people who continue to defend the likes of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. Because you can't fix a problem if the person told you, I have the solution, and that turned out to be a lie, and you continue to support those people. How can you fix problems if you listen, if you continue to believe the liars and charlatans? You have to vote these people out. You need to cut these people off. Once they've been proven wrong, they should disappear politically. You should never hear about Nigel Farage anymore. He's been wrong on everything. Boris Johnson, wrong on everything. He should not appear anywhere. Of course, he's Prime Minister now, and no doubt as soon as he leaves, he will still be talking about Brexit, and no doubt he'll be saying how, well, Brexit hasn't succeeded because I was removed from power or something like that. Expect this type of rhetoric from Johnson. He's not going to go away into the shadows. No, he'll still be around, and he'll be criticising likely whoever takes over. And if the Labour Party take over, he'll be saying, yeah, the consequences, I said, the problems you're facing at the moment is because of someone else, nothing to do with me and my lies. And Farage is doing exactly the same thing today, even talking about having another type of Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.